The latest on the Brexit talks, on the vaccine, and after at UK and a Changing Europe, who's worked in Whitehall and in Number 10 as a senior civil servant. Before we get on to the tricky business of a possible deal, what about Labour's tricky business?
Lord Mandelson was going through the calculations Labour have to make. It's clearly very different for Labour if they think that the alternative, if they don't support the bill, is no deal. I think in those circumstances, it's absolutely clear from everything that the Labour front bench has been saying that they think no deal is the worst possible outcome. Lord Mandelson was saying that. In that case, I think they'd have to say something like, we think the deal's pretty terrible, but it's better, and you shouldn't have got the country to this state, but for God's sake, it's better than no deal. So you can't rely on your backbenchers, but we'll do the responsible thing by the country, but we think it's a terrible deal. And the moment we get back in power, we will do better, improve it, as Lord Mandelson was saying. They've got more of a dilemma if the Prime Minister can count on his backbenchers to support the deal, so it could go through just on Conservative votes, in which case the issue for Labour is the one of how this plays with the electorates. Do people, are they more worried about people saying you voted for this rubbish deal, or are they more worried against the taunts in 2024, whenever the next election is, maybe 2023? Are they more worried by the taunts of you still didn't accept Brexit, you still are trying to refight that battle, you're led by the world's most uber Remainer, Keir Starmer? So I think that's going to be the calculation they have to make, but it's not for me to make it for them.
No. As for the negotiations, I mean, we know Boris Johnson is still working personally on getting a deal, but do you think in his heart of hearts that's his preferred choice?
I think that's basically the 2% of GDP question. It's what the OBR says the difference is between no deal and the deal next year. A lot more than $64,000. We just don't know. I think you could see, if this is the Boris Johnson who writes articles, that in many ways it's easier to have more stirring rhetoric about no deal, standing up, standing firm on sovereignty, the issues of principle, not giving in, not giving way with our fishermen. And Penny Mordaunt in the Commons just now was pretty firm that there was absolutely no way, and it wasn't just totemic, it was of vital national interest, so no way of giving away in fish. You could see the attractions of doing that. But against that, if you're the Prime Minister, you've had your official forecast to tell you that no deal leads to not only quite significant disruption early next year, just as you're trying to regain your reputation for competence, just as you're trying to get the nation energized around the vaccine rollout and things like that, but it also delays sort of regaining the GDP loss through COVID until 2023, and that's getting perilously close to the next election. So he's really got a very, very difficult choice to make. The other thing we know about Boris Johnson is this doesn't appear to be somebody who finds choices very easy.
One final thought. I plan to ask you about a tweet from Tony Connolly, the Europe editor of RTE, who said, according to sources present at a meeting, Michel Barnier warned the UK that a deal would not be approved by EU member states if the UK pressed ahead with passing the internal market and the finance bills into law. And then, lo and behold, a few minutes later, we heard that the government's ready to chuck those clauses. What do you think?
We're chucking, it's not sort of quite chucking the clauses. It's sort of saying, if we get agreement in the Joint Committee, the thing that Michael Gove is attending today, then we, won't need these clauses. That's actually the position the government's always had. And it has just published the resolutions on this new taxation bill. But these aren't they're not on the statute book yet. The government may reinsert the clauses in the internal market bill today, but it's got to go back to the Lords, who are quite likely to send it back to the Commons again later in the week with those international law-breaking clauses deleted again. So I think somewhere in the choreography, if there is a deal, the government has now signalled it won't need these provisions if there is sensible progress on both the Joint Committee and towards doing a trade deal. If there is a deal, then the government will, somewhere along the line, manage to lose these clauses. They won't ultimately be an impediment to the European Parliament and the European Council agreeing the deal, I think.
Thank you. As always, Jill Rutter, Senior Research Fellow at UK in a Changing Europe. In a moment, the latest